eat only locally grown food, the local tomato, the local cucumber, the blueberry, whatever it is. Well, how about Locavesting? Keeping the money that you spend, and more importantly, that you invest, close to home. Both Americans have put $26 trillion into the stock market through our 401ks, et cetera. Most of that money flows to giant businesses who avoid taxes, lobby our government, outsource jobs, and extract capital. It's very profitable, particularly considering they've purchased both parties, at least the leadership of both parties. Our next guest says shifting even a small portion of our own money into investing in local business development and local consumption in terms of the business interaction would have a big impact. So can we turn away from the Wall Street economic machine, which we have a tax incentive to put it in there through the government rulings? We have all these incentives to take our money away from our own communities and give it to the financial institutions, when in fact we would want to have our money being put into our communities. Speaks to the power of the financial lobby. And a woman who is on the case, and author of Locavesting, The Revolution in Local Investing, Amy Cortese. And it's a pleasure to see you. Did I say your last name correctly?
Yes, it's fine. Glad to be here.
That's Ari.
Hi, Ari.
That's Torre. And that's Krystal.
Welcome.
By the way, folks at home, Amy was the woman who you saw, you probably didn't recognize, who was enjoying the gay marriage conversation. Thank you for doing that, Amy. And in a nutshell, tell us what you're witnessing in terms of the barriers to this type of behavior economically and the benefits when it happens.
Well, I wrote the book to describe the groundswell of activity going on in this area across the country. And in my view, it's the type of financial innovation that we really need in this country. You mentioned $26 trillion that Americans have invested in various investment vehicles, but very little of that goes to small businesses who create more than 2 out of every 3 jobs.
That would be new businesses.
Yeah, that's debatable.
We can debate that later.
Could get into
but keep going. Either way, I'm more or less with you.
Yeah. So, and also, small businesses benefit.
But isn't the problem that Ari makes a paycheck, Torre makes a paycheck, Krystal makes a paycheck, I make a paycheck, and the system says, we'll give you a tax deduction if you take some of that money and invest it in the global financial system, and then you can retire and become a happy old man and play golf and enjoy your time on the boat. But if you want to take the money and not push it out of the system overseas to the corporations, and you want to invest it in a small business, if you want to invest in your own community, well, on that, we're going to tax the living daylights out of you and make it much less profitable for you to do that. How big of a barrier to this type of local investing is the actual corporate investment complex in the tax code?
Well, the biggest barrier, actually, to local investing is our securities laws, which were crafted in the Depression era and have not kept up with modern times. So there is essentially 2 tiers of investors. If you have a net worth of $1 million, not including your primary residence, you can invest in anything you want. If you're like most Americans and you don't meet that standard, you're very limited in what you can do. So it's 2 tiers of investors. It makes it very difficult for small businesses to raise money
from small investors.
Yes, and it's cutting off a huge pool of capital when we desperately need it.
And you have examples in the book of all sorts of people that have had tremendous success by pooling that capital. Go ahead, Krystal.
I wondered if you could get a little more into the book, because another piece of this is it's so easy to invest on Wall Street. You can go to E-Trade, you can talk to a stockbroker, all the financials are listed, you can find out information about the company. Do you also give some advice in the book if you're interested in investing locally, how to pick a good investment, how to evaluate these different opportunities?
Yep, I do. I've broken the book up into chapters that look at different investment models that are established and emerging. And I give practical advice and resources and kind of a how-to guide at the end of each chapter.
Because obviously the concern is it's a less transparent marketplace. It's easier to get ripped off. It's easier to get confused. At the same time, I know there's one reference to a bunch of police officers who actually invested in the
local bakery.
The local bakery that was going to get closed down. They named it Cops and Donuts. They all put their own money in, and now it has 19 people that work there, and it's become a real anchor in the community. And this is just some guys who are some cops who put together a few $1,000s in order to move this bakery into a business and then built the business. You wrote in the book, you say, long before the global financial crisis exposed the flaws of our complex, intertwined, profit-at-any-cost system, a profound movement has been building that is centered on building resilient, sustainable, and healthy communities. It can be seen in the surge of buy local sentiments, farmers markets, and locavores, and you consider this basically just to be the next step, which is the internalization of actual money into the development of those businesses. Tori, go ahead.
You do want to know a lot about the company you're investing in, right? I mean, I've read some of Jim Cramer's books,
Sure.
one of our friends, and he talks about you really know everything you can about the company, Apple, what have you. So these companies you're talking about with Locavesting, I mean, should it be something that, like the new bar that's coming in down that's looking for people, or something in New York City, New York State for those of us who are here? Like, how local, and what is the demand of finding out everything you can about a business that there's no press, nobody's writing books about it, there's not easily findable financials on the new bar that's coming in down the street?
But it's going to be good.
Yeah.
It's going to be hot. You're going to love it. Anyway, go ahead.
Two things I would say about that. One is, when we talk about local companies, we think about the mom and pop shops, the local bar, the dry cleaner, and yeah, that's the quintessential local business. But they can also be companies that employ hundreds of people or high-growth startups. So the defining characteristic here and the distinction I'm making is that they're locally owned and rooted in their communities, so they're a stakeholder.
Quickly.
Secondly, yes, you have to do your due diligence. No one's suggesting throw that out the window, but I would argue that there's less risk thanks to the proximity and familiarity you may have with some of these companies and the stake they have in the community and the accountability that comes with that.
You can answer my question with a number, and that is, if someone's actually thinking about doing this and they have money to work with, what % of their portfolio are you talking about here?
Okay, that varies. I've talked to some people who have put as much as 10-20% of their portfolios into these sort of investments, but 5%, 1% would make an enormous difference. 1% of 26 trillion is 260 billion going to the Main Street economy.
Yeah, and the interesting thing, the barrier obviously is information and liquidity and all the rest of that. But at the same time, if you update the securities laws, which allow that vetting of that type of thing, and the internet comes into the mix, if we're renting out people's cars and houses and all the rest of this, there's clearly a way to create a much better capital market that actually provides capital to these types of businesses, as opposed to the capital market we have now, which basically harvests our capital to take it overseas. A pleasure to meet you. Congratulations on the book.